Hey, D, George, thank you. Just to kind of follow up on that theme, D, can you shed some light on what type of feedback you have received personally from your membership about minority hiring and the cycles in recent years? And as a second part of the question, what types of things do you think, and some of the executive committee can weigh in on this, I'd hope as well, what type of things could players do to become more involved in the process if they should, in fact, be more involved in trying to make it more equitable for head coaching opportunities?
Yeah, why don't we turn that over to the EC, and then I'll finish up on a couple of things that we've talked about specifically.
Anybody want to jump in, Mike T?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go first because I know some other guys probably want to touch on it. But I'll say this. I mean, I think a lot of players have been, using their voices and using their platforms to, speak on this issue. They vouch for head coaches that have been, minorities, black, or of other ethnicities, people of color, to become head coaches, to become coordinators. And, for whatever reason, it didn't really happen this time where there were 6 job openings and I think, two people of color got hired, one at the very end. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the players are doing their part, using their voices, using their platforms. I think D hit on it best, like having a system, having somewhere you can have like some levels of metrics where you can track and actually prove and show, what that process is like and have some type of transparency. I think that'll probably be the best thing, and if players can be a part of that committee, great. But other than that, using your voices, using your platform as players, that's what we can do, and just hopefully keep fighting for some type of metric system that can keep track of that.
Anybody else want to weigh in on the EC? Okay.
I recently wrote an article in the Players Tribune titled "Upstairs and Downstairs" that talks about the race issue in the NFL, how 17, now 18 years ago, the Rooney Rule was created, right? It was created because there were 3 black coaches in the NFL. And 17, 18 years later, there are still 3 black head coaches in the NFL. And so I think we all know there's a problem. So the question is, okay, what is the solution? One thing that I've seen is players using their voice, players speaking up on behalf of a coach that they believe in, right? You see that happening time in and time out. Now, it doesn't help when a player speaks up and then someone squashes down their voice or their opinion to say, oh, you get paid too much money to talk, right? That doesn't help, right? What helps is when players who are part of systems trying to win organizations can see what they see and know what they know and use their voice for good. I think about some of the task forces and also some of the committees that have been put in place in ownership to try and address some of these issues, right? You have this, the owners have a committee that addresses this. Well, out of that committee, I believe there's 10 people on that committee and 8 or 9 are old white men, right? Talking about diversity. So I believe that's an issue. So I think a lot of the players believe if you want to see change, you need to see different faces and different voices that are at the table trying to make some of those changes. And so I think players are trying to do it. Players are doing it, but also there needs to be buy-in from ownership, which I think they're taking steps, but it's by no means not enough, not nearly enough, and more needs to be done.
Well, we intend to present a plan to the league. And look, what we're talking about in the National Football League is something that hundreds of corporations have been doing for the last 20 years. How do you increase the pipeline of people who are eligible to be hired? We should look at that. We've had an NFLPA All-Star game for years. One of the things we've always been interested in doing was having coaches of color be active NFL coaches of color be head coaches in our Hall of Fame game. It's been hard to do that because we haven't been able to get the league's permission to have those people coach in that game. Why do I want those people to coach in that game? Because it allows them to put head coaching experience on their resume. So if we can start to build the pipeline as step 1, step 2, decrease the barriers for people's ability to transfer to teams. We've had a system in the National Football League where if you were a coach at a certain position on one team and you were interested in a job at another team at the same or a higher level, you had to get the permission of the owner in order to apply for that job. That's a barrier to entry. So let's get rid of barriers to entry. I think the last time that there was a salary study for what NFL coaches make, what their benefit packages are, was a study that Gene commissioned at a time when we were hosting and supporting the Assistant Coaches Association. But, look, the assistant coaches decided to go in another direction because, frankly, they weren't interested in unionizing. I don't know what they're doing now, but I think that association still exists. What they've been able to accomplish, given this round of hiring this year, leaves a lot to question. But if you're not on the side of building accountability structures and transparency structures, then you're not only not helping improve diversity, you're actually hurting those efforts. Because if you're an association that pretends that you are there to support things like diversity, and you've not been able to do anything to further those goals, you're actually creating a world where people think that there's something out there that's helping, when in reality, you and I both know they're not, right?
Just to follow up on that, D, in terms of feedback from your membership, how passionate are your players about this issue?
You heard Michael Thomas talk about that's going on in the community, and Sam Acho. Are there others who want to jump in?
I can.
Oh, go ahead.
I can say something. This is Wesley. I've talked to several players throughout the season, especially towards the back end, when they see these vacancies of coaches not being hired. They're not black. They're not, any other race besides a white guy. And it does frustrate players, especially African-American players, because we see ourselves as potential leaders within the NFL community. We want to inspire ourselves to be head coaches. We want to be GMs. But if you have guys like Eric Bieniemy, who's been an NFL legend, who's done great things within his offense, within the team that he's on, going to two back-to-back Super Bowls, like that frustrates us as players. But I think the great thing that Sam said and Dee said too, there has to be a platform to where we can hold each other accountable, to where the conversation continue to keep rolling, and to now these GMs, these owners have no choice but to say, hey, we have to really seriously check ourselves, because this is an issue that has been going on. We put this rule in 17 years ago, and there has not been any kind of change. There's 3 coaches that are still black. That's the progress that we want to see. But if we don't create these platforms to put everybody on the same level and let these owners know that, hey, we're players. Our players are playing in this league. We give so much to this league. They want to be coaches too one day. And I think that's a system that we have to put in place.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I think that part of it is the assumption also that we're only talking about former players. There are several people outside of the former player realm who would love an opportunity and are very qualified to have leadership positions in the NFL. We're also talking about coaches, but we're talking about C-level positions. And this isn't just unique or germane to the NFL. When you look across corporate America, 3.2% of C-level positions are Black Americans, even though we make up 12% of the population. And so this is not an issue that is only in the NFL, although that's what we're talking about right now. So part of it, number one, is understanding that there's a wealth of knowledge outside of the guys who are simply playing, although we would love those opportunities as well. I think the first part of this conversation, though, and the toughest part, I think, is deciding or having a conversation about, is this really an issue? Some people will say it's not. Some people will say it is. Are the outcomes truly an issue? Is there something nefarious going on? Is there nepotism going on? Are all these things even true? We can't come to an understanding about that, then we have a long way to go. Secondly, when it comes to equity, we're not simply talking about an equal outcome. It is about an equal opportunity to have an outcome. That's the frustrating part. That's what you hear from so many people. Men don't feel like they have an equal opportunity. And so it's going to take, yes, it's going to take accountability. It's going to take strategy. It's going to take doing something outside of the norm. But quite frankly, it's going to take intentional action from those in power.
It's going to take ownership saying, you know what, this is going to be a priority for me. I'm going to do something that maybe my colleagues don't think is right, but I'm going to give this opportunity to someone I know is qualified. And in that way, you start to create other pipelines. If that doesn't happen, we'll keep coming back here having the same conversation over and over again. It's going to take players, of course. It's going to take us on the outside saying, you know, these are candidates that we see in the game and outside the game that we know are qualified to be head coaches. Let's rally behind them. Let's plan. Let's almost like politics. Let's campaign for them. But it's also going to take, the way the structure of the NFL is, going to take ownership to say, this is something important. I'm going to actively get out of my comfort zone and do this, not with someone who's not qualified, but with someone I know who is, but may not be in my pipeline, in my circle. I'm going to give them this opportunity because I know generations after that person need this to happen in order for them to have an opportunity as well.
And to the point of nepotism and cronyism, just to follow up on Ben's point, owners are the ones who decide who's hired and who's fired. And so we could come up with as many systems and consequences as we want, but an individual owner, there's 31 of them, are the ones that have to decide, as Ben said, this coach, whether he's black, yes, he may be black, but he's qualified. You know what I mean? It's not this, like, owners have to make those decisions. There's a guy, Champ Kelly. He's was a scout, then he's an assistant general manager. He built a championship roster in Denver, right? He helped that team become, and West played in Denver, right? Champ was, in a lot of ways, the reason why Denver was able to have a roster to win a Super Bowl, right? Well, he leaves. He goes to Chicago, right? He helps build a roster where in 2018, Chicago went to the playoffs for the first time in years, right? A team that was 12-4. He helped build that roster. Yet for whatever reason, and Champ is an African-American man, he's a black man, for whatever reason, Champ's not getting calls to be a general manager. For whatever reason, when Champ wants to talk about maybe a raise, or Champ wants to talk about, to Dee's point, of going to interview somewhere else, you have to ask for permission. And Champ's not the only one. We've had players. So the question about what do players think? Players have had conversations with people in management, people on the C level, people who are scouts, who are general manager candidates, people who are coaches, people who are work as DPEs, director of player engagement, saying, "Man, we don't have a voice. Like, can you please help us? Use your voice, help us." And that's why you're seeing players use their voice. But at the end of the day, we can talk all we want. There's 31 owners who have to make that decision. 30 of them are of one, race, if you will. And we have to kind of change that conversation.
Thanks. Lots of passions there. Thanks, Jarrett. We're going to do one virtual question, move to Lindsay, take a couple of other virtual questions before we do our Alan Page presentation. So, Darren Smith.
Thank you very much, DeMaurice. It's always good to see and talk to you. Jarrett Bill kind of stole my thunder some, but I do want to ask you, because we look at the situation that's taking place with Deshaun Watson with the Houston Texans, and we talk about former players that are speaking up and wanting some of these coaches, coordinators having the opportunity. What is your opinion, I guess, of players who, when there are openings such as that speak up and look, I'm someone who grew up in, with protesting, but would you advise or would you support players who decided to protest against their own bosses or organizations to make sure that, someone such as Eric Bieniemy or Todd Bowles or Byron Leftwich got a chance to not only interview, but have a fair chance at being named the head coach of their particular squad?
Yeah, there's never going to be a day when I don't urge our players, urge our members as men to use their voices and step up for what's right, regardless of what happens. You look at that famous picture of Muhammad Ali at the Cleveland Summit. Who was there? There were basketball players, but there were a lot of football players who risked their careers at a time to support a man who chose to exercise his religious freedom not to go fight in the Vietnam War. So under what scenario can I look at Walter Beach in the face, or remember my friend Bobby Mitchell, or look at Jim Brown in the face, and look at the risk that they took to stand up and say what's right, and not, on the other hand, turn to a group of players in 2021 and exhort them to use their voice for what's right about social justice or hiring. There is a thread that runs through all of it, and our job is to simply embrace the history that we have.
Lindsay?
Hi, Dee, and to the executive committee as well. I believe you guys have started having discussions with the NFL about what revenues has looked like this year, what the salary cap might look like for 2021. At this point, do you believe it will be at that $175 million floor? Could it be higher than that? And there will be losses. So what is that going to mean for your players, and what concerns maybe do the players have about what 2021 will look like for the free agent market when there is a significant drop?
Let me work backwards a little bit. JC mentioned the fact that we ratified a CBA in March, right before COVID hit. We had two successive CBA deals after that. What we affectionately refer to as the COVID CBA talks about handling losses in revenue in a way so that it doesn't have a dramatic impact on the salary cap. So we have a floor of 175 million. And then we have a process by which, if we think there's going to be losses in the future, we can spread those out as well and then recoup them at a later time. With respect to the salary cap, we've just started to look at the reporting packages. I think the next reporting package will come in February, what's today, 5th? Probably February 6th. So all of those people out there who just love to dive into intricacies of revenue generation in the National Football League, as thrilling as that is. The folks on the NFL side, the NFLPA side, will be looking at that. We do have a $175 million floor. Do I think we will be above the floor? I think there's a decent chance that we could be above the floor. But I'm not going to speculate anymore about the actual salary cap until after we've taken a good look at the reporting packages.
And JC, you want to talk a little bit about free agency, the second part of that question?
Yeah, I think that's going to be an important part for us to work with our agent community as well, and make sure we can help them in a really unique off season. Again, this is not normal. We were put in this position through these negotiations, understanding we were going to have such a significant loss, and our salary cap is based off projections and revenue. And when you have a season which there was limited fans at best at stadiums, there's going to be a significant decline, and that's why we have those negotiations to spread those losses over multiple years in order to protect players and not let one group of players take the complete brunt of that loss. And now we will work with our agent community to help them work for our players and getting them compensated fairly.
Thanks very much. We're getting close to the end. We do have one really important announcement here to close out our Super Bowl press conference. Dee, go ahead.
Every year we have an opportunity to award the NFLPA's highest honor. We named that highest honor after a former player named Alan Page. Alan was a tremendous NFL player, but again, closer to my heart, he was a tremendous supporter of the union. He served on the first executive committee while he was playing. He ended up, obviously, being inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame. But before that, he was an accomplished judge in Minnesota, served 23 years on the Minnesota Supreme Court, established the Alan Page Education Foundation, and is also a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom. This year, we were going to give that highest honor, the NFLPA Alan Page Community Award, to a shining example of what it means for our athletes and for our men to use your platform for good, but also to achieve change. This year's recipient is named Hayden Hurst from the Atlanta Falcons. In December, Hayden opened up to the world about his struggle with depression and attempted suicide. As a result, he created a safe place for millions of people who also battle mental health, inspiring everyone to continue this dialogue, but equally important, to build structures and support networks for those who suffer. In the 2 months since then, more than $150,000 has been raised by the Hayden Hurst Family Foundation, which builds awareness of mental health issues among children and adolescents by funding mental health services and programs in schools. This funding has supported more than 270 teachers, 5,500 students, and 8,100 parents through a social and emotional training program for kids in kindergarten through 8th grade. It's called In Focus. By having the courage to say that it's okay to not be okay, Hayden has demonstrated not only a sense of personal struggle, personal survival, and personal triumph, but he's incredibly promoted a sense of success for millions of kids who look up to our athletes as heroes. So on behalf of the NFLPA, Alan Page, the former winners of the Community Service Award, I'm honored to present the 2021 NFLPA Alan Page Award to Hayden Hurst of the Atlanta Falcons. Hayden.
Thank you. What an honor. You know, I'm totally humbled to be the 2021 recipient of the Alan Page Community Award. 5 years ago, from where I was, where I'm at now, I really have to pinch myself. It's been such a wild ride, but to be in this position to help people and to give back is just remarkable. The money that we're going to receive from this award is going to help change so many lives and impact so many lives, and it's going to save lives. So thank you for that. Thank you to the NFLPA, to everyone who voted, to my mom, to my dad, and to my sister. Without them, there would be no Hayden Hurst Family Foundation, and without them, I don't know if I'd still be here. So thank you. And I would be remiss if I did not introduce the brains behind the whole operation, the COO of the Hayden Hurst Family Foundation, and my loving mother, Kathy Hurst.
Hello, everyone. I just want to take a second to thank the NFLPA, to all those wonderful players that also do things in their community, and the other award winners. Thank you so much for what you're doing. It's making a difference because people now are talking about their mental wellness and they're not afraid to speak out about it. And this money is going to do so much for us in our foundation and helping more young people realize it's okay not to be okay and to talk to somebody, because we're losing too many young people to suicide. So I want to thank everyone again for this tremendous honor to Mr. Page and the NFL. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have a tremendous son, and every now and then it's great to be reminded that these guys who are on the field are always somebody's little boy, right? So thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm going to go call my mother. What you going to do?
Thank you very much,
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So, folks, that was without a doubt, the most engaging, 2 hours and 4 minutes this week. And this, when I end this broadcast, will be processed to become a video. And I'm going to take parts of it, especially what you heard regarding the players, and talking about the problems of qualified black coaches not getting head coach and coordinator jobs in the league, put out for a separate video, okay? And that'll happen pretty much about a couple hours, less than thereabouts. And got to be mindful of the schedule, that both personal and otherwise. But that's it in terms of what else is coming up with respect to the league. That's it on Zenny 62 Media, because that's it for what the NFL is providing right now. And when I say for what the NFL is providing, I don't mean to put a pejorative spin on that. No. This has been a fantastic setup that has worked extremely well. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we'll have the NFL Network analysts and media availability. That'll be the only thing. That's at 1 o'clock tomorrow Eastern. And Saturday, NFL Honors at 9 o'clock Eastern. And then Sunday at 10 o'clock, there'll be the post-game availability and after the game, which means, in other words, let me put it this way. Zenny 62 Media will take you into the post-game environment. We're having a watch party to watch the Super Bowl, and I'm going to take all the people that are right in with me to the post-game availability so they can feel like they're in there, right? So join us. And then Monday, February 8th at 8 a.m. Eastern. That's early. The thank you from the Tampa Bay Host Committee closing news conference, which includes the passing of the football from Tampa Bay to Los Angeles, where we will enjoy Super Bowl 56. Wow. Getting up there in number. At SoFi Stadium next year, 2022. All right. So, wow. What a talk. All right. It was, I've been to a number of meetings like this. That one, I think, was, I don't have to think about it, say that was the most no holds barred conversation regarding coaching African Americans and the race problem in the NFL I have seen, that was made available to a public audience in such a way that it can be broadcast and rebroadcast and distributed virally via social media. That was something else. So it is 4:03 Eastern, and that, unless anybody has a comment they want to make and write in, there and have it pop up, but I'm really anxious to end the broadcast so the system can go through its propagation process and have this up. All right. Oh, by the way, you might be wondering, if you're watching the entire thing, there was a part that winked out. I wasn't aware of this until after I was asked the question. In other words, let me rephrase that. I wasn't aware that this happened until after I was selected to ask the question. I was selected, then they moved me into a panel room. And what happened was, for about a good 3 seconds, there was no prompt control where I could actually press the unmute and the camera. They have that hidden from you. The host has that control, but the host has to activate that, and then you have to wait from the host's action to the action to get to you so you can see it to respond to. And that was the delay. But in all that, what happened also, I think you all got a dark screen over there. In other words, when I it was like, it looked like this, right? Okay? And I didn't realize that until just a little bit after I presented the question. They were going through the answers, and D. Smith was talking. I thought, oh, wait a minute, let me check. And then I shifted back to D. Smith. I caught part of it. So, dang it, I don't have a copy of myself, I don't think. But maybe. But it wasn't by far the most important aspect of the event. I think the most important aspect of the event was the conversation about race. And clearly, something needs to be done. It's just sticking out there too much. But you have two problems. You have the virus, and see, my take is that the league doesn't have a handle on what to do next right now. And if I were running their task force, or if I have not running it, well, yeah, I would. If I had a planning role, I would set up a war room. I would set up a real war room and a room that's virtual. And this goes back to Hans Blumenfeld was a legendary planner in Toronto. He had a war room set up. He was the head of director of planning. This goes back to the mid-'60s. He had and you say, how do I know this? Well, I read his book, and I was born in 62. I was aware of Hans Blumenfeld in 1967. At any rate, Hans had this layout. And he had these different boards. This is before the computer and everything else. And he had these boards for different streets and roads and all of these different maps and different plans. And it was a way of being able to respond to different needs and occurrences in the city, different infrastructure needs, and so on. It was quite advanced for its time and quite applicable to a computer generation. But it's also quite applicable to any kind of situation with respect to planning that you can think of, right? Even today. So you need, what the War Room does is allows you to bring together different data sets, different areas of information that you've put together, and then use that to form a plan. So you can put the plan on the website, you discuss it in your rooms, both virtual and real, and then you can set out a plan for implementation, get approval within the room, okay, to move forward. And the idea is if you make it a virtual room, you can, if you make it a virtual room, you can make it shareable on a smartphone like this one, okay? And so people can be part of the decision-making process, the input process from anywhere in the world. So that's what I'm thinking that that needs to be done in this instance. All right, it's 4:08. I'm out of here. I'll talk to you all later. See you tomorrow. Oh, by the way, 1 o'clock tomorrow. I have. Actually, that's 4 o'clock tomorrow. Excuse me. 4 o'clock tomorrow. I have Oakland District 7 Councilmember Traylor Reed as my guest to talk about what she's working on, her concerns. And then I have John Jones, Oakland activist, at 9 o'clock tomorrow. So that should be quite interesting, both of them. All right, thank you for checking this out with me. Oh, by the way, don't forget, join us on Sunday. We're going to really do this 30 minutes before the game. We're having a Super Bowl 55 watch party. I'm inviting all the fans of the weekend to join me so that we can watch. Can't see it here, but we can watch and react to the Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show. I can't show it for copyright reasons. I mean, even just I had one bit of a tune from the weekend that popped up later because the NFL had this interlude, right? And I got a copyright claim for my whole doggone 30-minute live stream, actually longer than that, hour-long live stream, because you were all on it if you were tuning in, for that one little snippet that's like 2 minutes long. I thought, you freaking kidding me? So I had yanked that out. Subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com. See ya. And that ends officially this broadcast.